They've won Tonys and Oscars and Emmys and Grammys. There's no red carpet 'cause they're home in their jammies. From Melrose Place to Broadway to Janeway and her crew. Let Seth and James bring all the stars to you.
Anywho.
They're entertaining everyone, so who's gonna grouse? Just sit right back and you'll hear some tales on Stars in the House.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stars in the House.
I am Dr. Seth Rudetsky.
No, I'm James Wesley.
Oh.
I'm not going along with that. Not when there's two doctors on deck.
Please.
After all the work they've done.
I have a degree in piano. It's the same thing.
I've told you this before, Seth, but for a minute, and John, you don't know this, but for a minute after September 11th, I was like, what's the important, maybe I've told you this, what's the importance of the arts? And I was like, I'm not an actor. It's not important. It's not important. And I was going to be a physician assistant. I was like in my 30s, and I got my EMT license. I ended up moving back to Texas, and I was going to go to Baylor and be a PA. And I was like taking all these science classes at City College and all that biology, chemistry things I had hated. I always dreaded. I actually took them and did better than I thought. And then it was like two things. One, I went and saw Kiss of the Spider Woman that I had seen and loved Cheetah in 6 times at the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. And I saw this production from Uptown Players in Dallas. And I was like, wow, I was so moved and it was so beautiful. And I was like, I have to be a part of this. And what was I thinking? But the second thing was going to the cadaver lab at Baylor, and the smell and all of that. I was like, there's just no, I can't do this. One trip in there for about 10 minutes of like the tour of Baylor. That was like, that's it. I'm done. I couldn't do it. It's like you see it on ER or Grey's Anatomy, and it's like, oh, the smell never bothers anyone. And then you actually go in there, and yes, there were people eating lunch, but it was just like, I guess you get used to it, but that's it. So that's why that is my reason that I will not say I'm even joke that I'm Dr. James Wesley. Because I know I'm crazy, but that so scarred me, that the smell in the cadaver. And I see Dr. Phillips and Dr. LaPook smiling and laughing at the comment. We'll talk about it when they're on here. But anyway, there you go. We are here for the Actors Fund, Seth, and we have a match. Seth does not understand why I would not call myself doctor.
No, I just wasn't prepared for a disgusting story to start the show, but I'm glad.
Have I ever told you that before?
No, and I'm glad you just
I saved it for here
on camera.
We are so excited because, of course, we're here for the Actors Fund, but we also have a matching donation from the Angie Torres Charitable Trust, $2,500.
Because we've done a show like this before, and they thought it was so amazing that they were like, do it again, and we'll match donations. So tonight's a great night to donate.
Right, that's exactly right. Because everything's going to be matched, and you're right, Seth. They've been such wonderful supporters of this show. But it's always been, they've done matches of like Sondheim and different shows. This is the first time they've done Dr. LaPook, which is so perfect, especially because of the Monday before Thanksgiving, which of course, everything we all will learn tonight is very applicable to the holidays through the rest of the year. So, so yes, send those donations.
Well, we're acting like everybody knows everything.
So please go, Seth.
This is a fundraiser for the Actors Fund. And I know a lot of people are like, Broadway's back. Why does anybody need any money? Okay, first of all, every single show is closing. Not really. But the point is, shows aren't necessarily running as long as they're supposed to run. Even when Broadway was at full tilt, there are a million people that were out of work. The Actors Fund is always doling out money. And as Brian Stokes Mitchell said, the head of the Actors Fund, it's going to take at least 5 years for artists to recover.
Around the country, yeah.
Because money's been spent over these 20, whatever, how many damn months there were of not working. People are running out of money. The Actors Fund gives you money for rent, for medical bills, for food. So we're still raising money for the Actors Fund. It ain't over until literally it's over, and it ain't over. So you can donate at starsinthehouse.com. You can donate.
Text Fund 2020 to 56512. You'll get a receipt. You'll forward that receipt to donations at starsinthehouse.com. We've already got wonderful donations coming in. We also, instead of having a medical break, we're actually inversing the world, and so we're having the artists come in, and when Jon LaPook is usually here at 8:30, it's going to be Andrew Lippa, who's the amazing composer of my favorite show, The Wild Party, that I ended up doing at that same theater at Uptown. But he's going to be here to talk about Places, Please, which is a project that's connected with the Actors Fund, bringing people. So many artists left New York City during the pandemic, and they literally do not have the money to return to the city.
Yeah.
And so Andrew,
yeah, a lot of people don't know, by the way, when you get a job and you're on rehearsal salary, you don't get your full salary up until the show opens. So it's not like they're moving back to New York and they're making all this money the first week. Like, they're on a very low salary. So you need money to be able to move back, and people can't afford it.
So Andrew is going to talk to us about that at 8:30. What else said? Oh, okay. Speaking of donations, one of our favorite donors, you got to tell the story, Seth, came to see your show, Broadway Breakdown, at Asylum. And I came to the show on Sunday, but this special donor came both Saturday and Sunday.
And I feel bad because she's not watching right now because she's on a plane. One of our regular donors, Isabel from Germany, flew in, now that you're allowed to fly in from Europe, just to see Seth's Broadway Breakdown, my show that I'm running.
Set it up because you were like, when you saw her Saturday, because you came home.
No, I'm bound to.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm literally giving the premise.
Okay.
So I knew that she flew in because you're finally allowed to fly in. So I was like, this is amazing because, like, she's finally coming to New York. She's gonna, like, most people see like 8 to 10 shows when they come in because they're mad. You can like let's say there's a Sunday matinee and a Sunday night. So I was so excited because she's gonna have like a whole week of seeing shows. So I see her Saturday and I was so excited. I said, what are you gonna see tomorrow? And she said, I'm going to see your show. And I was like, oh, because my concert series is on Sunday night.
Right.
So I'm like, that's so great. So I said, well, what matinee are you going to see? And she's like, no, I'm seeing your show. I'm like, wait, so you saw Seth's Broadway Breakdown tonight? It's Saturday. Then you're going to see my matinee of Seth's Broadway Breakdown. And then I was like, okay, what are you watching the rest of the week? And she's like, I fly back Monday. She literally flew to New York just to see my show twice. That's it. And then flew back.
And she got to meet me in line. So here I am with Isabel from Germany.
Isabel, who's so loyal. But she literally saw my show twice. And James was at the Sunday show. He literally left halfway through. He's not even interested in seeing my show. And Isabel literally has a commitment. He was like, I'm out. So that is called commitment.
I had to go home, and David and I had to get ready for your damn show. That's every speaking of this coming Sunday. What
is she so mad about?
Leslie Kritzer. She's very.
What is she pissed about? Leslie, cheer up.
Anyway,
Leslie is hilarious. Leslie's from Beetlejuice, one of the funniest people, one of the most amazing voices. And wait till you hear her story about she played Fanny Bryce in Funny Girl, and Liza came to see it. And when Liza came backstage, her first comment was, I've never seen anyone work harder. It's not a compliment. Anyway, Leslie will tell the story. It's amazing. So many passive aggressive. I don't want to look like I'm working hard. So she's Sunday night. And then, I guess, we should show the Jack video.
Yeah, we can. Look who's
speaking back.
Of Mandy, so because we were at the apartment when you were doing a concert, we're back at our house.
Sweet Mandy.
Last night you had Andrea Burns. And Andrea, because of your relationship with her and just who Andrea is, let's just say there was a lot of excited screaming.
No, it's a song.
No, but there was other
really?
times that you were talking. So, but I took a picture because Mandy didn't know what was going on. So this is like me taking a picture of her. Her ears were going toward downstairs.
Good girl.
I was like, what is happening? And we've been really taking advantage of being near the park. The colors have been so pretty. So I had to show
hashtag no filter.
Yeah, there is hashtag
no filter.
There's a
look
close
at that
up,
smile.
But yeah, it's been really pretty. Anyway, go ahead, Seth. You want to do?
No, I was going to say, speaking of Seth's Broadway Breakdown, I want to give a shout out to Jack, who created this great. Yeah, Jack Plotnick was like, your B-roll looks horrible. Because I had B-roll of Seth's Broadway Breakdown that was taken like from the side with no lighting. So Jack made me film a million things, and he created this amazing commercial.
Oh, but wait a minute. This is a cruise, not the.
Oh, you're right. So, wait, no.
Well, it says, no, I think it's that. Oh, maybe David's loading.
Yeah, because we showed the cruise one because it was celebrity sponsored us, right?
Okay. So David's gonna add it.
All right, so we'll
show it after.
Yeah, we'll show it during our entertainment break.
There we go.
All right, so in conclusion,
I say we bring on Dr.
We have
Jon
so
LaPook.
many medical questions, starting with what does cadaver smell like?
Please welcome to Stars in the House, Dr. Jon LaPook.
All right, we have to clear up so many things.
Oh no!
No, it's okay. Because people don't know that the smell that you're talking about is formaldehyde.
Right. Absolutely.
It's formaldehyde. It's not something else that might be associated with a body that is not alive. Okay.
Yeah, that is true.
Also, I'm impressed by Seth's AAD degree. Also a doctor.
AAD, that's a degree?
Yeah, also a doctor. You're also a doctor.
Oh, thank you for acknowledging I was always called the assistant therapist during group therapy because I was such a know-it-all. So thank you.
And then the line about I've never seen anybody work harder reminds me of my father-in-law. Once we went to a play and he knew the person. We went backstage. It was not good. So what do you say? Because she opens the door. What did you think? And he doesn't lie. So he said, good is not the word.
Wow.
Wait a minute. He said that after he saw my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll kill him.
Anyway, I thought that was so they got that all out of the way. I'm excited to be here because we are here with Dr. Michael Phillips, who is a colleague of mine at NYU Langone Health, where I'm a professor of medicine. He's a professor of medicine and a big macher, as we say, in infectious diseases. He's also the chief epidemiologist at NYU Langone Health. So he has been there from day one at the beginning of the pandemic, being one of the major leaders. And I think one of the things that I would love to do, and one of the things that I'm proudest of our Stars in the House family, is that we're not giving you a fish, we're teaching you how to fish, right? And I think tonight we'll answer these questions, but I think a lot of it is, how do people think about ways to keep themselves safe over the holidays and beyond? Because the specific answers may change, but how do you think about it? And I think I would love, it's a good time to bring Dr. Phillips on it, but I just want to say the reason why at NYU Empathy is on is we just got an Instagram for the NYU, the Empathy Project at NYU Langone Health last week. So we are we're closing in on 10,000. Yeah, we're 9,863 followers shy. So but we do have 137 as of tonight. It just started a few days ago. We have thousands on Twitter, but it's the same handle at NYU Empathy. So if you want to do something for us, for me, please follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Please, we want to get that going. You'll see some really cool stuff there. Anyway, so should we? Are you going to introduce, or did I just introduce Dr. Michael Phillips?
You can introduce. What's that?
I think we should read donations right at the
Oh,
beginning.
you want to read some donations first?
Yeah,
Okay, sure. And then we'll bring. That's okay. So, there's quite a few in here, John. Do you want to read?
Gosh,
It's.
I think 804 is where it begins, because those are.
Yeah, those are. Yeah.
It's hard for me to read that because it's, thank you, Dr. LaPook, for your support and valuable information through Stars in the House. Can't be watching live because, as luck would have it, we're getting my third graders first shot tonight.
Yay.
One more step towards immunity for our community. Ryan in Wisconsin, $100.
Yes.
Yay.
All right.
Read above?
I'll read right above.
Yes.
Wishing Dr. LaPook, Seth, James, and everyone at Stars in the House, everyone in the Sith Core family, as well as newbies, a lovely Thanksgiving. Seth, see you on Friday at your show. Seattle, Susie Q, $20.
Hey, I'll see you Friday at my show.
And Seth, do you want to read the one right under the one that?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't like to miss a matching night and wanted to express my gratitude. I'm thankful to Stars in the House for giving me a place to get away to during the tough times over these many months. I'm thankful to the Sith Core fam for our collective love of theater that has brought us together and our constant care for each other despite the physical distances between us. Since this is a house call night, I'm thankful for the wisdom, caring, and the time that Dr. L has given us throughout the year. P.S. I got my booster on Friday, and I'm heading to my second show on the Broadway tour, feeling confidently armed with the knowledge to feel safe. Thanks to Dr. LaPook. Happy Thanksgiving. PM Clancy, $20. Thank you, PM Clancy.
And Pam Clancy is a regular, and she's terrific. She's been really supporting us and following us. And the last one is thank you, Seth, James, and Dr. LaPook, for everything you've given us for almost 2 years. Love you guys and love you, Stars in the House Core fam. Dan Walcott, $25. Thank you, Dan. And thank you for donating. This is so important. Such an important cause.
And thank you, Angie Torres Charitable Trust, for matching.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. And with that, Dr. LaPook, you wanna any other introduction before we bring
no,
Dr.
just
Phillips?
that once he's on, it's too embarrassing for me to say this, but you have to understand that, people have come and gone in terms of, like, I was on the wards for a while, back April of 2020. He's been in the hospital the entire time, helping to direct what happens. And there have been 1,000,001 tiny decision points. I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting for people, for him to give that sort of the arc a little bit. I'd love him to do that. And I think he'll also be uplifting, because we were there at the beginning when it was a lot worse than it is now, as frustrating as it is right now. as we start to tick up
Yeah.
again in cases. But I think he'll help give us the perspective of that. And he's just a smart guy who can answer a ton of questions. So, Mike, Dr. Michael Phillips, come on board.
Thank you so much
Hi.
for having me. And it's such a great organization, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Welcome to Stars in the House.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Phillips.
So
we have a million questions.
We do. I mean, John, do you want to start?
Well, Mike, I would love for, I can only imagine, I have personally asked you, 27 questions in the last year. So, that's probably an accurate, now multiply that by how many people are asking you questions. So, my first question is, how you doing?
We're doing good. It's going good. And I loved hearing you guys talk beforehand because it is such a positive feeling. And I think we should feel that way. There's so many good things that are happening. I mean, of course, a lot of dire news, in medicine, outside of medicine, but still a lot of good things to be thankful for.
When you think about, I would love you to give a snapshot, and then we'll go to answer some questions.
Yeah.
Of where we were at the height of the pandemic when, it really, I mean, I was on the wards in April of 2020. It was really started a little before then, but when the hospitals were full, we were afraid that we might run out of ventilators. There were places in New York City that didn't have enough places for the bodies that were dying. We did not have the vaccine. We did not know about steroids. We did not have remdesivir. We didn't have testing.
Yeah.
We didn't really have the masks for the public at that point because there was a shortage. And we even ran out of the usual N95s that we use at NYU Langone Health. So we've come a long way. I don't want to be Pollyanna. We're not out of the woods here by a long run, but I would love to hear your snapshot of at the worst of it.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting time. I think in February of that year, we knew where we were in trouble when we were speaking to major suppliers for the hospital. And not only were they not getting the supplies, but all the raw materials were produced in the most affected area of Wuhan. So we knew we were going to be lacking supplies. And then, as you and I know, we were both on those units. And I don't know, I guess I describe it as something unlike anything we've seen where we did not have therapy that was working. We didn't know quite what to do. There was a tremendous amount of empiricism or experimental, treatments and such. We've come a tremendous way, both in the vaccination and therapy. We do know what to do now. There are tried and true, therapeutics. I think even though those were very sort of dark times, and they were just as a community, and we were hearing how it was affecting the arts and everybody, all those things that people needed, we were not allowed to do. And in medical care, we were struggling with delivering the best care. But there was also a tremendous amount of sharing about what worked, what didn't. New York City, we were at the vanguard. We were one of the first areas in the States to be affected in such a massive way. I do think, and the reason why the arts are so important is, I'm sure, John, you've been thinking about this too, is the second wave, which is, when getting those healthcare providers through that traumatic initial event, but that importance of community, the arts, getting together again to sort of allow the healing from the stress and trauma. It really was like a combat zone. The difference was in combat, it's not usually in your place of work, and you don't go home and come back to the same place the next day. And so I think that, again, the importance of the arts and community to help recover is so important.
Can I just ask something along those lines? I have a very young friend, this guy in his 20s, and he's definitely he's vaccinated and he's going to be boosted, but he's just nervous about getting together with anyone. He's just kind of living in fear. And I'm wondering, to me, socialization to me is so, I think, important, almost more important than like possibly getting it, because it actually helps you to socialize. Like, that's what I feel you're saying. Is that what you're saying, both of you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of phrases that have come out of this, which is to scratch my head and think it's not so good. This idea about social distancing. Well,
how many times have I said that?
I mean, there's a lot of
physical distancing.
and we know that, how this virus transmits now. But I think it's important for folks, once they're vaccinated and protected, and we know, I've talked with Dr. LaPook multiple times about, response to vaccine, et cetera. But the thing is, these vaccines, they're not experimental. They've been in development for almost 2 decades. They really are a safe platform for delivering this, ability for your body to develop immunity. And once you have that immunity, that your risk of getting severe disease and hospitalization drops almost 100-fold. I mean, it's dramatic reductions, and you're much less likely to transmit to others. So now's the time for us to think about what are the safe environments that we can go to, and let's do that. And I think we need to not, we need to be cautious, we need to be thoughtful, and we need to think about, as Dr. LaPook was saying, about when is it safe to get together. But there's no doubt in my mind that it is safe if you're fully vaccinated.
So that's a great setup to, I know what everybody's been asking me. I know they've been asking you. We have Thanksgiving coming. We have the holidays coming. How do they think about staying safe? And a lot of the questions are along those lines. So why don't I pitch this to you in the teach them how to fish. Don't give them the fish. People want to know how to think about it. So I'll just recap the things that we have at our disposal right now. Number one, common sense. Okay. Let's just seriously, and embracing science. Number one. Okay. But we have vaccines. We've got masks of varying qualities. We have ventilation and filtration. We have testing. Those are four of the big things. Then there is getting information, understanding where you are in the country.
Right.
Am I in an area where there's a monsoon, or is it just drizzling outside? That'll change whether I go out with nothing, a raincoat, a little umbrella, a big umbrella. Okay. So, and that's available on websites to know what's going on in your neighborhood right now. It's we're so all over the place depending upon where you are in the country. So I'll give you a typical question, Michael. People are saying, I'm going over, we're having Thanksgiving dinner, and several of us are fully vaxxed and have a booster. There's a couple of kids who don't, and one person's totally and a couple of them have vaccines but no booster, and there's a couple of people who aren't vaccinated at all because they're too young or there's something else going on. So people want to know, mask, no mask, indoor, restaurant, open the window, open the door. So take us through your logic. This is something I have spoken to very recently with, not to name drop, but to name drop, Rochelle Walensky, the head of the CDC, and Tony Fauci, and we've talked about it. And, other of our colleagues at NYU Langone Health. This is the big question that everybody wants. And I will just say, there's no definitive answer. If you don't want to, it's a risk tolerance thing, right? And there are people, if you don't want to get hit by a car ever, don't cross the street, but we have to cross the street. We have to socialize, as you said. So how do people think about their own risk tolerance? And then what are the steps they can do?
I'd approach it like a hospital. In other words, our goal is to protect the vulnerable, those people who, for whatever reason, the vaccine isn't working quite as well, they're uniquely vulnerable. And second is prevent transmission, so that even those folks that aren't uniquely vulnerable aren't getting exposed. And the way you can do that is to keep infectious individuals out. So let's say at that holiday gathering, you might have somebody who is older. Maybe there's some concern about the vaccine. For some reason, as you said, there were medical reasons. They have severe allergy. They couldn't get the vaccine. So first, anybody coming who should be vaccinated. We know there are some folks, because of the age, because of what they believe, can't get the vaccine. So then I think a reasonable approach would be for us first to be honest with each other and not be judgmental, right? And say, okay, let's say you couldn't get the vaccine for whatever reason. That's fine. I'm just going to ask that you go ahead and get a test a day or two beforehand, right? And then the reason is in the gist of coming together and us all feeling safe and comfortable. And then even the best process would be you repeat that test a day or two after the event.
Right.
And
So
then,
let's stop. I want to, because I want to go down that line, but I want to make sure we hit each point. This is a key point, and there are a bunch of questions about the testing. So there's been a misconception about the testing that it would be great for us to clear up. You have the PCR, which is the most sensitive. In fact, it may be too sensitive because even after people have cleared the infection and the virus is dead, I mean, I know it's not alive, but it's dead, for weeks, even months later, you could still test positive because there are broken pieces of nucleic acid that are sitting there. So sometimes it's too sensitive. Then you have the antigen tests, and those antigen tests are less sensitive, but when this was analyzed recently, they're less sensitive for finding any virus. But if you look at, are they good at finding the amount of virus that would make, if I'm infected, that would make me likely to infect somebody else? They're actually pretty good.
They're practical.
They're very practical, and they're a lot of them are there are ones that are very specific, meaning there aren't a lot of false positives, because with certain ones, I don't want to name brands because I'm not looking to push a brand, but anyway, you can look at these charts and they'll tell you the sensitivity and the specificity and all that stuff. But remember that, like, a lot of them, one of them, for example, says you test today and then you test 36 hours later. That's because if you missed it on day one, maybe it's now enough 36 hours later. So if you're using it because somebody's coming to your apartment or your house, or you're going to an event, you have to do it as close to that event as possible. So if you do it 2 days before, you've got 48 hours for that virus, if that person was infected, to now, I was negative 2 days ago and now it's growing up, and now I show up, I was negative, and you're infecting people. So it's a 15-minute test. You can do it at the doorstep. You can do it in the hallway. We had, when my sons were before they were boosted, when they came in, all four of us, first we would have the masks, when hi. We go to our corners, we do the test, we put the mask on. How are you? 15 minutes later, we're negative, we take the mask off. It's not 100%, but right. And I think that's what Michael, that's what you're saying, right? So if you're having that scenario where people are coming over and you want to test them, but don't make the mistake of testing too early. It's great that you tested negative a day or two before,
right?
But if you could do it right then, that's
exactly
even better. And that brings up, and I want you to handle this, the whole issue. You said you have to do it with empathy or with not judgmental. How do you talk to the dance? You're having people over, you want to ask them to test. I mean, really? But it's almost like, I mean, it's not exactly like when you're dating, but let's get this out of the way. I have no high risk for this, and this. So nowadays, people want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Are you, were you exposed? What's your life like? Are you somebody I should be worried about? Because you can't tell by looking at somebody. So how have you negotiated the social aspect of figuring out whether this person who I love, who I'm coming into my house, is going to infect me?
Yeah.
And then how to tell them I want them to get tested.
I think particularly for these gatherings, it's fair to say, look, I just want to make sure that we're not placing anybody within the home as we gather there here and enjoy each other's company at risk. And I think that sort of says, it's not any one person, or we got to worry about, grandmom because, she's older, or that kind of thing. But it's just like, we want to create this a safe event so we can all focus on what's important. And that's, enjoying each other's company. And it's so important, right now, right? And it's sort of like putting on your seatbelt, right? You get in the car, you just put it on your seatbelt, and then you drive and you move forward and stuff. And I think, as we move from pandemic to epidemic, because pandemics don't stop, they just fade away, right? And we're going to be in this in varying kind of formats over the months and stuff to come. And so we're all going to be dealing with these. And as you mentioned before, about risk and that kind of stuff. But, everybody has a certain amount of risk for COVID and having bad outcomes from COVID. And nobody, we all work with individuals who may be immunocompromised and we don't even know it. And I think that's the spirit of that kind of discussion.
Along those lines, I love one of our viewers. If everyone gets tested at the door, no one should feel singled out. And that way, someone doesn't have to be embarrassed that maybe they are immunocompromised. It's just everyone is treated equally. So it's just sort of, egalitarian.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Along those lines, because we're going to go to what would normally be our medical break, but it's Andrew LaPook break. But before we go there, just so I'm clear about testing, because Seth does his concert series every Sunday, and when the artist walks in, we do the test. But what if someone had a test the day before or the day before that and it was negative? How much is that? And that's true for people that are going to be gathering for Thanksgiving, through the holidays, that they got a test the day or two earlier. Let's say the rapid test. Is that as good as it's not as good as getting it the day of, right? Yeah, I can tell by your face, John.
He said it's close.
No, I mean, if you want to do belt and suspenders, and maybe Mike feels differently, but it's nice to get a PCR, because logistically it takes a while to get those back. So maybe you do that a day or two before, because you can get the result back, and that would be the most sensitive. So you love that. But again, that if you have to think about the 2 to 14 day incubation period. So if the person's unlucky enough to have just hit that sweet spot of being negative on the PCR 2 days ago, and now they're becoming positive and they're walking into your house. For me, I feel, I have the lowest level of, as Mike knows, of risk tolerance, because like today, I was doing procedures in the hospital and taking polyps out, and I can't have COVID. Even if I'm wearing an N95, so I test myself and I'm careful and I'm a nut about it, right? So that's my zero tolerance kind of thing.
Right.
Other people are going to have more tolerance, but I think for me it's very, very reasonable, and believe me, expense is not nothing.
Yeah.
These tests do cost money, and they should be government subsidized. They absolutely should be. But to me, it just makes sense. Just like when I saw To Kill a Mockingbird yesterday. Oh my, what a play. What a play. And I walked in there and they checked my card and they checked my ID, and everybody wore the mask, and I felt safe.
Right.
So if everybody's doing like the viewer said, if everybody's this is what we're doing nobody felt singled out. This is what we're doing to keep the community safe. So
okay, we're gonna go to Andrew LaPook, give you a little break, and then we'll come back. And I know there's more viewer questions. I know Seth and I have more questions, and we'll see you in a little bit. And we have more donations. Thank you for those who have donated. We'll get to those when we get back. All right, I'll see you in a little bit, Dr. LaPook and Dr. Phillips. Seth, you want to introduce Mr. LaPook?
It's time for us to have one normal night. Thank you. And instead, we're going to raise the roof. Anybody? Please welcome.
That's why I had you do it.
You know what? Here's Andrew LaPook. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
Those medical segments are absolutely spectacular. Those doctors are so wonderful to listen to and to talk with. And I learn something every time I watch a show, every time I hear from Dr. LaPook or Dr. Phillips, every time I hear you guys talk about it. It's so incredible what you're doing for our community. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew LaPook.
Well, you're also doing a lot. Why don't you tell everyone about this project?
Sure. Thanks for having me on to talk about Places Please Project, placespleaseproject.com. Early in the pandemic, I read about, thank you for the little thing on the screen. Early in the pandemic, I read about Beyonce giving money, or relatively early, it was, I think, at the beginning of this year, giving money from her foundation to people who are having housing insecurity or people who were truly about to lose their homes or going to need some sort of financial assistance to stay in their homes. And I thought, what are we doing in the theater community to help people stay in their homes? And even more importantly, so many people have left New York City. So many people have left New York City because of the pandemic, went to other places during the pandemic, and then lost their leases, lost their jobs, lost their ability to earn money during that time, as we all know what a challenge that's been for everyone. And so we founded this organization. It's me and Annie Schiffman, Kyle Jarrow, Lily Cooper, and Kara Unterberg. And we pulled this group together. We've been able to partner with the Actors Fund. Of course, you know, the actorsfund.org is the website address. And you can also, if you are someone who needs help and wants to return to New York City, or just returned and you have a job, but you just don't know how you're going to get a lease now, and you just don't know how to navigate that process, the Actors Fund is here for you, along with Places Please. And you can go to, I'm looking at my sign over here, actorsfund.org/get-help. And on that list, we're listed among the organizations that can help you. In fact, one of the things we learned through the Actors Fund, folks, is that, you know, you might qualify, if you're listening to this show right now, you might qualify not only for a grant from Places Please project, but you might qualify for other grants because of the kind of work you do in the theater. So we're trying to do our part by helping our friends in New York City. We know there's theater all over the country. We know there are people all over the country who watch this program. We haven't been able to expand all over the country yet, but we're starting where we are. And we're hoping that we can reach a lot of people who need our help. So far, we've been able to give out $70,000, and we're hoping that we can encourage more people to donate. That's actorsfund.org/placesplease or placespleaseproject.com, and you can donate there.
That's amazing.
It's really great because I think it is very depressing. People had to leave New York. You feel, quote unquote, like a failure. You know, you leave the town where everything is happening and you have to move back with your family, your parents. And it's so exciting to get to move back and then not being able to afford it. It's devastating.
What we found, it is devastating. And what we found was that it doesn't only affect artists. It doesn't only affect people who are actors and musicians and creative artists. It affects people who are administrative workers. It affects people who work in all the press offices, all the production offices, all the casting offices, all of the people who work to make New York City theater run. And we're not just talking about Broadway. We're talking about the entire theater establishment in New York City. So many of those people, not just the artists, so many of those people had to leave New York City and lost their jobs because shows closed and everything stopped. And we all know the history. So what we're trying to be is another leg up in a sense, another wheel that can turn towards getting us back. And getting back means getting people settled. We want to get people settled in the theater business. We want to get people feeling safe to come to New York City too. So we're all working towards the same goal. So thanks for giving us a platform here to talk about it.
Of course.
I like that it's called Places Please, but also gives me anxiety because I'm always nowhere near where I should be when Places is called. I'm always in trouble.
If we had called it Beginners to the Stage, Seth, it would have been a very small number of people who would have gotten it. So we made it. We tried to come up with something clever and memorable. And for you, I'm sorry it causes anxiety, but you know, for others it may help spur people to donate. Hopefully.
Good to know.
All right, Andrew. Thanks so much for coming on.
By the way, of course, we all know that Andrew, you know, Wild Party, Adam's Family, John and Jen. What's the next musical? Harvey Milk. What's next for you?
Well, if things go well, I have an original movie musical. That's a Christmas musical that is going to start production in April and hopefully be available by about a year from now, if all things go well, which I wrote an original score for. So we're pretty excited about that happening.
Yes, Andrew.
Yes, Andy, movie musical branching out. All right, see you on the silver screen.
Thanks again, guys.
Bye, Andrew. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Everyone donate. What a great idea. Places, please.
Seth, before you bring them on, do you want to?
Oh yeah, we have the video. So this is the video my friend Jack made. I'm just very proud of Jack's work.
Yes, Jack is really a great director.
God, this is for the show that's running off Broadway. And if you're coming to New York this weekend, I added a special 11 p.m. show if you want to see Broadway show.
All right, 11 p.m.
But I've got a lot of shows coming up. Anyway, thank you, Jack Plotnick. Here it is.
Yes, Jack.
That's dramatic.
It was such a big budget too. He only charged us like what, $10,000 for the fee?
Yeah, well,
directing fee
plus his hair and makeup.
Right.
Why did he get hair and makeup? Those all filmed on his iPhone.
I know, it's crazy that he could do that on an iPhone. That's insane.
We got a lot of donations.
We got more donations. We got more questions. So I say we bring back Dr. Jon LaPook.
All right.
Dr. Michael Phillips.
How cool is this? Andrew Lippa. We just, not a problem. Andrew Lippa's on, and now we're on after Andrew Lippa. There's not a dearth of talent.
Dr. LaPook and Dr. Phillips, you were saying earlier, I want to get this settled because I want to know as far as the level, because you were saying, of course, if there's a high infection rate in your area that you live in, and you said to check that. At what point is it no longer low and you should go to like, oh, you know what? I need to like pull out all the bells and whistles and I really need to do everything because it has reached X level per 100,000 or whatever it is. Is there an answer?
Michael, you want to take that?
Yeah.
So CDC does have a grading system that they use. They look at the average rate of transmission over the past 7 days. And I think it's important to look at the trajectory. Is it going up? Is it going down? It's important to look at your community and how many individuals have had, vaccinations and such. And that'll give you an idea in some sense of how safe or unsafe it is to go out. I think more and more folks as well are looking at not necessarily infections, because as we talked about, if you're vaccinated and you have an infection, you're most likely going to have very mild disease. But even looking at things like hospitalizations, which is more representative of severe disease, particularly amongst unvaccinated individuals. So there's no magic number, but it's just kind of, like you say, looking at the weather and what's in store. You can kind of get a sense.
Okay. I know that, in terms of the country, I keep hearing the number under 10,000 cases per day, is something that we're looking for. And of course, we want I think you can get faked out a little bit by the percentage of positive tests, because now that we're doing a lot of home testing, are people reporting that when they're positive? No. And there's a delay. I know that's one of the things that the public health people are, frustrated about. There's a delay in reporting. I'm with Mike. I mean, there's no magic number.
But you know what, though? That goes to a question. I don't know if you've had these discussions, but a lot of people have said, not flippantly, but they've said, we're all going to get it. And even if I have the booster, why go to so much, going back to the stress comment and the anxiety of it creates too much anxiety. And if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. What are your thoughts on that? Because I understand in a way where they're coming from, but I don't want to get it.
Let me take that first, because I did pull. I knew it was somewhere on the CDC website.
Okay.
So low transmission is blue. This is the CDC. Moderate is yellow. Substantial is orange. High is red. Total new cases per 100,000 people in the past 7 days. Low is 0 to 9. Moderate is 10 to 49. Substantial is 50 to 99. And high is greater than or equal to 100. Right. The percentage of NATs of the testing that's positive during the past 7 days also goes from less than 5%, that's low blue, 5 to 7.9% is moderate, 8 to 9.9% substantial, and greater than 10% high. But as Mike says, it's a general guideline,
right.
And what you want to know is what's going on in the restaurant where I'm thinking about going inside and taking off my mask. So right. I'm gonna go over two questions. I'm gonna take the easy one, and I'm gonna give the hard one to Mike Phillips. So one question was, I want to know, if you're trying to get pregnant, should you wait to get your booster? This is Barbara from New York. Barbara, we're hearing you. If you want to get pregnant, should you wait to get your booster till after you're pregnant so the baby can benefit the most from your antibodies, or just get it ASAP? No, get the booster as soon as you're able. Your baby's going to be well protected. You'll be more fully protected from getting a life-threatening illness as you await pregnancy. And there was just a study out, was it last week, showing an increase in stillborn and other problems obviously we know there's an increased risk to pregnant, unvaccinated pregnant women. So don't wait for the antibodies for your baby. Get vaccinated as soon as you can. So that's easy. Everybody agrees on that. And I even ran that by the CDC just to make sure that hadn't changed. And they said it hasn't changed. Now, Rachel's, I'm sorry. It's to Molly. Oh, so Molly asked about the holidays. We answered, Molly, I want you to know we answered your question about going to the, there will be 8 fully vaccinated and booster adults, and our 1-year-old is unvaccinated baby. And one of the adults is a high school teacher. And we just found out there's no mask mandate in the school. So, how do you think about that? And I think we talked about that. I'm Edward from New York City. I'm wondering what Dr. LaPook is thinking about indoor dining after being boosted.
Right.
I got my Pfizer booster on 11/7. Mike, take it away.
Good.
So 11/7, so you're 14 days beyond the booster. So we've seen the effect of that and benefit of that. That's great news. So, it's certainly possible if you're going to large groups where you are going to be in an area where the ventilation might be lower. Remember, ventilation is really important. People can't wear their masks because they're eating.
Right.
So you very well get exposed. I think by being boosted, your risk of severe disease is a lot less. But I think that if you were to develop the colds and sniffles, it's really important for you to get tested. If that test is positive, what are you going to do? You're going to stay home. You're going to talk to your doctor, your healthcare provider. Importantly, if you're at risk for serious disease, you're immunosuppressed. You sort of question whether you again, everybody has different risk tolerance and stuff. But let's say you want to get out. You test positive at that point, then you're talking to your doctor. Do I need to think about some sort of medicines to protect me from getting severe disease, et cetera? So the important thing is not to be sort of so bound in that you feel like you could never go out.
Right.
But getting the booster, really important. What do you do if you do develop a little bit of sniffles? Good dialogue with your clinician. And obviously you're going to be thinking strongly about other measures if you got a profound immunocompromise.
But Michael, I feel like this goes back to what Dr. LaPook always says. If you're going to go into a restaurant, ask them if they have filters, what the ventilation is, because if you're quote unquote exposed, but there's good ventilation and filters, you probably, it'll go away. Right?
And if you're in New York, for example, they require proof of vaccination.
Well,
I mean,
I would love for that to be an offshooting of this pandemic, this terrible pandemic, is that just like you see the Department of Health stamp, you're an AAA, you walk in, what's the ventilation?
Yeah.
Is it, because think about it this way, and somebody else said this to me, but I can't get it out of my head. When you're in a room and the ventilation is not great, you're actually breathing in the air that was in somebody else's lungs. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to be helping COVID, because COVID, as Mike said, is going to become epidemic. And I want to remind you to define epidemic versus pandemic, because I was thinking when people may not know that, and endemic. So remember that question. But people have one of the big questions when somebody is thinking about going into a indoors, and I can tell you that we don't know the answer to this, but it is the question, which is if you go in and you're boosted and you happen to get infected, because it's not going to be 100% protection, what is your likelihood of infecting somebody else? Because that's my big question. I know that I'm not, knock on wood, I highly doubt if I get infected that I'm going to end up dying or even being hospitalized. I've been boosted, and did you see, Mike, that the Pfizer 3-dose where you go from the second to the third, you went from like 450 to 25,000. You went up like 50 times.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
So for everybody out there, we shouldn't forget to say this. This is a 3-dose vaccine.
Right.
I mean, Tony Fauci's been saying this. I mean, we didn't know. It really looks like it's a 3-dose vaccine. I mean, if you're Johnson & Johnson, it's Johnson & Johnson plus the booster. But that's very clear. But the question is, what if you don't get sick? What if you're asymptomatic and you're boosted? You're me. And now I'm worried about infecting somebody else in a medical center where somebody may be. Now we're wearing masks. And that also, I'll throw that question on to you also, which is, should people really be wearing higher quality masks instead of just the I mean, why not wear a KN95, which is, or an N95s can be a little uncomfortable. The KN95 is pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why don't you answer all those questions?
Yeah, I think that, really there's great data out there that if somebody is infected, but they're fully vaccinated, even boosted, the amount of virus they're shedding is so much less, and so the risk of transmission there is much lower. Plus individuals, and John, I don't know, there was a lot of discussion about this initially, and I think we really don't know how great the answer is. Is there an inoculum event? In other words, effect is if you get exposed to a lot of virus quickly initially, do you get sicker quicker and faster versus a slow or lower amount of virus is less likely to give you severe disease? So but you may go to that luncheon or dinner out, you're boosted, you get sick, and then if you're wearing a mask, but I would say particularly a closer fitting mask, you're much less likely to shed to others. And I think that gets into the issue of using a more tightly fitting mask like a KN95, 95, et cetera, or double masking, but that can be kind of uncomfortable as well. The single mask, that surgical mask that you see, probably about 50% effective at reducing.
And it has but we were talking about that before, right? The sides puff out, so maybe if you're gonna do that plus a cloth mask over. But of course, and we should just make it clear to people, because I know there's different data out there. If you're vaccinated and you get a breakthrough infection, what happened in Provincetown that made everybody so upset was the first day you had kind of the same amount of virus as if you were unvaccinated and got infected, but it looked like it fell off a lot more quickly. And I know that people are, so you're not totally safe. That's the problem. And even there's some conflicting data about that, about how quickly it, in a prison study that just came out about, maybe it doesn't fall off so quickly. But I think the bottom line is, if you're vaccinated, you're much less likely to get infected in the first place. So therefore, you're definitely much more likely to then therefore pass it on to somebody else. But I worry, and I think everybody, I'm still not totally comfortable going indoors in a restaurant yet right now, because I have this low risk tolerance. We see the numbers ticking up, and yet I would feel pretty safe. I wish, and that's why I wish I could go online and say, oh, this is how far apart the tables are. This is what the air quality is.
Right.
This is what the CO2 meter shows. I mean, maybe we need to start putting, the last thing restaurants need is another thing to worry about, but I think it would end up being a good thing to have what Joe Allen calls the healthier buildings.
Let me ask you this. This is a question I have that Lynn, one of our viewers, has. How do we know the effectiveness of the booster won't fade with time? How much time must pass before we do know that answer? Because like you said, it's gone up 50% from that second dose to the third dose. But when will that start to taper? Do we have those answers yet?
I think those are answers that will come, with time, and I think John's right on the money that for these mRNA vaccines, it really is a 3-dose series. We first knew that with the folks that were profoundly immunocompromised, but even with folks with normal host immunity, it's really 3 doses. But is it going to be a vaccine that's going to require periodic dosing, or is it like hepatitis B, where you get that 3-dose series and you're kind of good for life, if you will? I don't know if we have the answer for that yet.
Or shingles, right? Don't you just get shingles once? The 2 shots. And
no, you get 2 shots, because that's the Shingrix is so effective, so much better than the original Zovirax. But what was the first one called? It was called this is Shingrix, and the first one was
Zovirax or something like that.
Was it Zovirax? I'm sure, thinking, okay. So. Explain to people the difference between, so we know this is going to become endemic, right, and epidemic. Why don't you explain to people what that is?
Mm-hmm. So pandemic, which we've all lived through, right, is a population that was completely at risk, and we went from a time where there was no disease to we were at 100 miles an hour, right? So the waves that were coming through of a unique disease that we didn't have any immunity to. Endemic means that the virus is circulating and it acts like regular coronaviruses. So we typically will get infected with 3 to 5 coronavirus infections per year.
Wow.
and
Wow.
there are certain strains that come through, but it's always kind of in the background. And I think that's what we're going to see with COVID-19. It's never going to go away completely, or highly unlikely to.
Because it's got an animal reservoir.
I know, the deer, the civet cats, who knows what. But I think that, a message hopefully coming out of this hour is that we can live safely in this world. Booster vaccination is amazing. There are more and more vaccine platforms that are going to come out. Newer therapeutics are here. We're talking about oral meds, etc. I bring that up with hesitation because I want everybody to get their vaccine, and I know there's still folks that are on the fence.
I do want to tell people though that what about the therapeutics. I had that written down. By the way, it's Zostavax. I just Googled. I know it sounds like Zovirac. Zostavax. We haven't given it in years, but anyway. So I had a person yesterday tell me that, or this morning, that a relative has COVID, and they will not, and she's in the hospital. So now she can't get monoclonal antibodies because she's in the hospital. Can you explain that to people? This very highly effective medication, these antibodies that have been life-saving for people. Explain why you can't get it when you're inside, when you're sick enough to be in the hospital.
Well, really, those antibodies are so much more effective early in the course of disease,
right?
When the illness is viral replication. When someone is getting sick enough to end up in the hospital, and this is why therapeutics like steroids work, we're not so much worried about viral replication at that point, but we're worried about the body's own reaction to the virus and this sort of inflammatory storm and cascade. So the antibodies work well against the virus, but they're not so great against this inflammatory cascade where your body is running amok, if you will. And that's where other drugs and just treatment with like steroids has been proven to be effective.
But it's so hard to thread that needle, as you and I both know in real life. With that, it's not like, okay, day 7, you're now past the replicative phase, and now you're into the inflammatory phase.
Right.
And I've had trying to get the person in before they crash and get really sick. And I mean, I think that hopefully that will change. And come on, if your person's a little elderly, they come into the hospital, they're on day 2, they're high risk. Bring them into the hospital so you can watch them. You don't want to have to do it as an outpatient. Anyway, some of the logistics. There's remdesivir also, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to talk about that for a second?
Well, it's just another important, drug that to help with the viral replication. But it's not been an out of the park drug, and this is the challenge: is that none of these therapies, probably one of the most effective, has been steroids, right?
Yeah, decreases inflammation, so it decreases that body howitzing, attacking itself. It thinks it's trying to kill the virus. It ends up damaging itself. And then we've got, as you say, the protease inhibitors that have been looked at. That looks good with the Merck drug and Pfizer. And so there are some very promising things. But I'm with you. Get vaccinated and get boosted. If you're over 18 and you're eligible, there's no reason not to get boosted. If you've been thinking about it, you've been wondering about it. It's 6 months and you've had that, 6 months have gone by. We know actually it starts to wane at 4 months, right? It's already starting to go down from the Israeli data. Johnson & Johnson, if it's 2 months, you can get a booster. So if you're out there wondering, should I get a booster? I think there's been a lot of confusion about that. Also, very good news today. Did you see in the 5 to 11-year-olds, there's been no myocarditis, no inflammation of the heart in the first bunch of people who have gotten it.
It's amazing.
So that seems to be safe. I think I have that right? That was today?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And people, look, any vaccine, any medication has side effect, but I will put it this way, that that pales compared to the challenges with COVID. And Johnny, maybe you've even seen it. And we can talk a little bit about folks that even have relatively mild illness with COVID can sometimes suffer some pretty prolonged symptoms. We call it long COVID afterwards, pulmonary symptoms, neurologic, etc. So
Piers Morgan, of all people, posted today, he got it after being vaccinated and he hasn't had taste or smell for like 6 months and he's still exhausted. So I mean, it is.
Well, that actually goes to the point of what I had asked.
But he's not boosted, by the way.
No, but what I had asked earlier though about people that some people have the attitude, and I'm sure part of it's from exhaustion of like, I've been vaccinated.
Right.
If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. But are the long-term COVID symptoms, are they less for vaccinated versus boosted?
It's a great question. I mean,
there was one study that showed it was down by about 50%.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
But we still don't know why people get long COVID. There's no like genetic marker or something.
There's a lot of work being in that field, just because that's a great question.
But I will say this: I think this is going to open the door to research for all those other, chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic Lyme, all the things that we said. Oh, it's in your head.
Right.
And all it's real. It's a post-infectious phenomenon. It's some sort of autoimmune issue where your body thinks it's attacking the virus or whatever the organism is, and it accidentally attacks itself. And I think there's this huge NIH initiative, as Mike knows, for long COVID. So I think there'll be something good coming out of that to figure out what is the mechanism that, because we're seeing a huge amount. And that's why I don't think, I don't want to get infected at all. I know if it's mild, but
Right.
there is a risk of long COVID.
Right. Speaking of good, there are a lot of people that are donating tonight. So Dr. LaPook, can you go to the private chat?
Yes.
And we want to thank the Angie Torres Charitable Trust for the matching tonight and all the people donating. It's one at 822 that David put up.
822. We've watched from the beginning, had to donate again in honor of Dr. LaPook. His advice has guided us from the beginning. What would Dr. LaPook do? Steve even built a Corsi Rosenthal box. Remember that box that we did a little story on CBS to an air purifier for my classroom. Thanks, Dr. LaPook and Seth and James, for everything. Alice and Steve Broad, St. Louis, Missouri, $100. Wow.
Yes.
So
And the
generous.
next one I'll read, and then you can read the next one. This donation is in honor of all essential workers, including everyone who works in medicine and science. Oh, I have a question for the doctors. Oh, here we go. What's going on in Europe regarding the rapidly rising numbers, and is that what we can expect in the United States? Thanks, Deborah. $50. What do you think, Michael? You want to answer that?
Yeah, in the Eastern Europe, there is a significant uptick with COVID and hospitalizations, which is one of the most worrisome indicators, and it has to do with low vaccine coverage. So in some of these areas, it's 40 to 50%. You have a tremendous amount of unvaccinated folks and vulnerable individuals who, once they get sick, get hospitalized, and so that it really is likely driven by low vaccination rates. It's not a new variant. It's not anything we have to worry about that's sort of new and different. And so it's just a great indicator that we just got to get vaccinated. Thankfully, here in New York, we have high rates of not only vaccination, prior natural immunity, et cetera, from that first wave last year. So we're in a good position so far. Rates are ticking up a little bit, so we got to keep an eye. But I don't think we'll see something like they're seeing in Eastern Europe.
Wow.
I want to addend something. When I talked about Pfizer and myocarditis, not causing myocarditis, that was in the FDA presentation. What I'm thinking about from today was Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine was 100% effective in kids in a longer-term study. This was 4 months after their second dose. There were 30 cases in people not vaccinated, kids not vaccinated, and 0 in kids who were vaccinated. So very,
I love it.
very, very effective.
I love that parents are getting them vaccinated. We have more donations. This is from Scott Holloway in Kansas. Donating to this great cause in honor of the Sith Core Fam, Stars in the House Core Family, and in anticipation of my upcoming weekend in New York. See you Sunday, Seth. It's coming to my show. Already freaking out a tad. Okay, Scott, see you Sunday, 4 p.m.
And the next one, thank you, Dr. LaPook, for your enthusiasm and keeping us informed on all things COVID. Your clear explanations. Hold on. What the heck?
Yeah, Norton antivirus just came out.
Exactly.
Okay,
your clear explanations have helped so many of us in dealing with this unexpected and certainly unwanted virus. May we hear from you soon on topics not so terrible and frightening, like ingrown toenails, perhaps. Charlie, $25.
When people, it's funny that Charlie says ingrown toenails. There are times, a lot of times actually, when a patient will sort of sheepishly say to me, I hate to complain about this because I know that, you're dealing with patients who are dying. They've got cancer. They've got this. And my stock answer is, look, your ingrown toenail is your ingrown toenail. You don't have to compare it to somebody else's crushing chest pain or their cancer. It's your ingrown toenail. So ingrown toenails can hurt.
The next one, I am so thankful for all the information, help, and encouragement that Dr. LaPook has given on Stars in the House. I can always count on you for the truth. Seth and James, thank you so much for continuing to have shows. We still really need them. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Sherry in Oregon, $35. And Seth, you want to read the last one?
Hi, Seth and James and Dr. quote Silver Fox LaPook.
Did Kate Lear do that again? She wrote that? What's going on?
Happy to make donations. Happy to do match night. And to thank you for a fantastic concert on my concert last night. And Sass Fest with Andrea last night.
Nice.
Thank you for watching. Thanks again for all you do. Love Lori or Loretta S from Texas, $30. Do we have time for any more questions?
I don't, Dr. LaPook, what else do you are there any others that we haven't covered?
I think, we sort of answered them sort of collectively. I think we probably should finish with a sort of a roundup of how we started, which is how we started tonight, which was, this was a nightmare. It's now we have tools, we have knowledge, we know about filtration, and thank goodness for the aerosol scientists who really taught us about that. It's a beautiful blending of two different disciplines. So they taught us about the importance of ventilation and filtration. We have a vaccine, unbelievable. And as Mike said, it was not overnight. It was decades of mRNA, messenger RNA technology that led to this. And by the way, wait till you see, here's a little tease. We're doing, I'm tracking it tomorrow. We're doing a piece on what's next for messenger RNA. And basically it's a way of telling the body to make stuff. The body, it becomes a synthetic factory. So it's not just making the spike protein to create a vaccine. You can make all sorts of things that are missing in disease. All sorts of proteins.
How about not make stuff like fat cells? Is that too shallow to talk about?
Way too shallow, Seth. It's way.
My fat cells are my fat cells. All right.
Well, there you go. Touche.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right back at you. Go on.
So we have, we have a lot more tools now, and I know, I believe psychologically right now, this is one of the hardest times in the entire pandemic, because when it first happened, it was novel, it was new. We were in fight-flight mode. The cortisol was going, the adrenaline was going. We spent more time with it. Believe me, it was horrible. It was, people were dying. It was terrible. But it was different, and we were sort of hunkered down and seeing family maybe and whatever. We were in that emergency mode. And now it's a year and a half later. And even though on paper we have all this wonderful advance, it still is, we're in a position where it's endemic, or it's still a pandemic. We know it's not going to totally go away. It'll be epidemic where it goes up and down, or endemic where it's sort of low level positive, like other diseases are. And here it is, the holidays coming, where people get depressed. Many people get depressed and sad and anxious. And we want to be with our families, and we have to wear a mask, or we have to think about how not to wear a mask, and who is sick, and who's, how do I keep myself safe? And I just want to sort of have some empathy for ourselves, for all, and me included, for the fact that this is a very tough time of the pandemic, I think. And I think this is a time where people should make as big of an effort as they can for everybody to get together as families, use the testing, use what we've been talking about with all the different ways of keeping yourself safe. And if you can't, I think Mike is exactly right. Figure out who's vulnerable. I love that. I never heard that before, Mike. Think about it like a hospital. The hospital mantra is keep the vulnerable people safe. Who's vulnerable? How do you keep them safe? And if you can't be there in person, call them. We started this, remember, a year and a half ago, we said, when this ends, pick up the phone and call 3 people who are alone tonight. And I would end this broadcast tonight the same exact way. Think about 1, 2, or 3 people you can call right now and brighten up their day. And Mike is exact right. I didn't hear you say that before, but I've been saying I hate the term social distancing. We don't want a social distance. We want a physical distance. And that was the thing I left out in protective measures. The fifth one is, of course, staying away from each other, but it's hard to do it inside. Mike, what would you say as a closing statement?
But you're saying call 3 people, but you're also saying make plans with them and socialize with them.
Yeah.
That is important for that. Physically to get together.
And by the way, Seth, I would feel perfectly safe and did feel over the weekend when I went to 2 things. I went to Twyla Tharp on Saturday, which was amazing. And then went to Kill a Mockingbird yesterday. I wore my mask. Everybody was vaccinated, and I would go to your show in a second, and we'll go to your show ASAP. Mike, I want to give you the final word.
I think that certainly the last 2 years have taught me a tremendous amount of humility, right? There's so much that we thought we knew, which we didn't, was incorrect. And I think we need to approach the coming months with that. And empathy, as you said, John, is such an important thing as well. But also hope and encouragement. I mean, again, we are in a challenging stage. Everybody's tired. But with the booster vaccination, with newer therapeutics, better prevention methods and understanding, we're on our road to our new normal, and it's not going to be a bad new normal. It's going to be, we'll be back doing the things we love doing. And if you have any concerns about spaces and enclosed spaces, we'll go for a walk. Be outside, bundle up. I saw a great walking the dog in the park, and you can do that with friends. You can enjoy a cup of coffee and do that kind of thing and connect, socially connect, physically distance maybe, but socially connect.
I so love that. Give yourself a break.
Right.
Do what's comfortable for you. And it's a good filter. I think it's been a good filter, this pandemic, for people who you really want to be friends with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I comfortable talking to you? Can we just communicate here? Are you going to give me a hard time? Am I giving you a hard time? We're all in this together. So that's the thing.
We have 2 things before we go.
Hold on.
3 things. We have to first read these donations. Right. We have one that we got, and then we have to show something.
Okay.
So there are 3 donations to read.
I'll read
we're
going
to read one.
You can read that one.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to, hi guys. Thanks so much for doing this long medical break tonight. We catch ourselves listening to pandemic updates on TV shows and saying, what would Dr. LaPook say about that? So now we know. Love you all. Happy Thanksgiving, Nancy and Susan in Decatur, Georgia, $100. Wow. Thank you. And another one, have to donate when there are matching funds. Thank you, Angie Torres Charitable Trust. Yes, thank you so much. Miss all the stars in the House Core family. Grateful to Seth and James. Scott Samuelson from Seattle, Washington, $25. And another donation. This has been such a valuable discussion. Thanks for today, as well as all the vastly entertaining evenings you've given us. I'm pretty new and officially joining the Sith Core fam, though I've been watching for a while, and you've given me so much joy. So thanks for not just today, but every day. Lane Wright in Nashville, Tennessee, $30. And Seth, you have one.
Then I have one. The Francis Lear Foundation, Jon LaPook, would like to donate in honor of Dr. LaPook and in honor of Seth and James. For the past 2 years, Stars in the House has been a bright spot at the end of very challenging days for John. Thank you for giving him the opportunity to laugh, to delight in the talented guests, and to share what he has learned every day in the hopes that it will bring comfort, valuable information, and empowerment to your viewers. With love from John's adoring wife, Kate, $2,500.
And she just slipped in and is over here.
Oh, Kate.
Thank you. That's lovely. We're connecting socially.
Is she vaccinated yet?
I've been boosted. I swear.
And she just boosted me. We can boost each other with
endorphins.
That kind of love. And isn't it been amazing? Michael said it at the very beginning, how important the arts have been and connection have been. And it's really kept so many of us as sane as we possibly can be. And Michael, I want to really thank you you cannot imagine how busy this man is. It's just such a gift he's the person I call in the hospital.
Thank you for having me. And this is such a great organization and such a window. And I really do believe that things like the arts and socially connecting are so important, particularly now. Thank
you, Michael. Well, you're going to enjoy this.
Maybe it's something you may have missed.
And Kate, maybe you want to just come and join your husband, because just as a refresh, this was June 30th, Seth.
Just to prove that the arts are very important in our lives, Dr. LaPook has something to say that he just read in the newspaper.
Let's see what happens here. I got the horse right here. The name is Paul Revere. And here's a guy that says if the weather's clear, can do. This guy says the horse can do. If he says the horse can do.
I'm thinking Valentine, cause on the morning line, this guy has got him figured at 5 to 9.
But look at epitaph, he wins by a half. According to this here in the Telegraph.
For Paul Revere, I'll bite. I hear his foot's all right. Of course, it all depends if it rained last night.
It
know it's Valentine, the morning works look fine. Besides the jockey brother's a friend of mine.
In just a minute, boys, I've got the beatbox noise. It says the great-grandfather was equipoised. Shows class, shows class. This guy says the horse shows class.
I go for Valentine, cause on the morning line, the guy has got him figured at 5 to 9.
So make an epitaph, you wins it by a half. According to this here in the Telegraph. Epitaph, I got the horse right here.
Now, Michael, let me explain.
No explanation necessary.
There you go. Oh, fun.
This I went to medical school, right? Anyway, that's wonderful. Thank you for. It's cozy, isn't it? It's a cozy little family. And Michael, welcome to the cozy family. And I hope you'll come back and help us out again.
I'd love to, and thank you for having me. I really mean that. It's been fun.
Yeah,
thanks for joining.
Time flew.
Time did fly, and so we're going to be back here next Monday, and we're going. Speaking of CBS, since you're the chief medical correspondent of CBS, one of the big stars of CBS in the '80s was Ms. Sharon Gless.
Yes.
Right, and she has her new memoir out, which I have read. I devoured it. It's coming out December 7th, but I think we're going to be her first round of media interviews, and she's going to be with us for the whole hour, along with Rosie O'Donnell and another special guest who I'll tell you off mic, Jon LaPook, who is a very special connection to CBS. So that's on Monday.
That's a tease.
Have a safe, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh,
and, yes.
This is our last show before Thanksgiving. Happy
Yes,
Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay healthy, and I hope that you're able to again figure out how to make the fish, how to fish. Something about a fish.
All right.
But hope
Bye,
you're
everyone.
thinking. I hope we've helped you think about how to stay safe and happy but be good to yourself and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, healthy, happy, and wonderful Thanksgiving and holidays and beyond.
Absolutely. And thank you, Angie Torres Charitable Trust. We
Thank
did
you.
it. We went way over the top thanks to the Lear Foundation.
And
So here we
Francis
go.
Lear.
And that's right. So Seth, what are you going to play? All right, there we go.
Da, da,